on, y'all? It's J Smo Reviews here, back at it again with another video, man. Bringing you guys today like a predictions, more announcements and initial thoughts kind of video here. And as you can see, we are going to be talking about the Kings versus Queens 5 announcements that happened during Gnome. In the building, they gave us no warning that the announcements are coming out per se, right? So I'm looking on Gnome as the announcements fly into the timeline. So far, we got 4 battles. I am expecting more. So when the full cards drop, expect a more, just X's and O's kind of predictions, who I really have winning and losing. But I'm going to give a little bit, to my opinions on the matchups here. Maybe a little bit of predictions, kind of where I see a couple of them going. But like I said, we'll talk once the full cards drop. We'll do the real in-depth close to the event. But this is more of just an overview and kind of my opinions, not just on the matchups, but this event concept, because it does look like similar to how Gnome Impact last year was a combination of double Impact and Gnome. It's said here by some of the rappers on the card, even the wordage by Smack and some of the trailers, once I was able to see afterwards, this is Kings versus Queens / Summer Madness. So it looks like they're kind of comboing it together. You know what I'm saying? So without further ado, let's just talk about some of the matchups. We can just start with the matchup that I personally like most out of these 4. It might be funny to some of you, but I really like John Dom versus Coffee Brown. And I don't think every battle needs a little bit of backstory, but I did particularly like around Cody time when John ended up finishing above Coffee, kind of the back and forth they had. I know Coffee had said something, you should worry about finishing above me. I believe he actually did finish 2 spots above. I was in the pan. I think he was 14, she was 16, but very close. You can even debate actually that year that she really had a better winning percentage, some better top comp. But John ended the year well, and he has carried that into this year as well. Obviously, the KvQ battle was another very good look for him, and now he's going to have Coffee here talking shit with Fonz, and I just say that to say I really hope, even though we'll talk more about this SM maybe not being a thing this year, I do hope we get John versus Fonz at some point in 2024. It's a battle that I think makes sense for both of them next. But I just like the matchup. Coffee has proven to be quite the strategist, even though she's a good bar-for-bar rapper. I feel like when you continuously are having wins, or more so the debatable battles even, versus even if it's not the greatest, Geechee Gotti, I've said many of times I don't like the footage like that, but she did what she had to do, in my opinion, to win, but to make that a debatable battle. Her and Jazz the Rapper, we just saw what she did. It's what she had to do to make that a debatable battle. At times, barring up with her, which I think can be Coffee's strength, but doing a couple of the other things as well. 40 bars, even E Heart, where she choked in the third, a lot of people still have her edging that battle out in the other 2 rounds. So I have, tons of respect for what Coffee's been doing recently, and I think for someone that's kind of been garnering just a way to make battles close or get wins, that plays perfectly going against John, who in many ways is like the male legend version of that. There is many battles where he's just nickel and dimed his way to a win. I mean, he obviously smoked a KvQ who didn't care very recently, but Easy the block captain, if you look at the way he was able to achieve that W, very strategic and done well. And of course, I've done a Hall of Fame video on John. We've talked about some of his biggest moments and how he's some of those bigger wins in debatable battles. So point is, both of them just are well-rounded. I don't look at either of them, I don't look at Coffee and just call her a pen. You know what I'm saying? I think that there's a few things that she does at a pretty high level or a good level. Maybe there's not one thing where I'm like, she is the best at this, but she is at the very good, maybe top 5, top 10 in multiple different facets. Just reminds me of the way John's style is, and when they had that competitive fire, they just went back and forth enough that I think that they could bring great versions of themselves. They're pros, and I just see them having a good battle no matter what. And then you have the other 3 matchups on the card. Another one I'll talk about, considering his name has been heavy in the news cycle lately with the fantastic battle he just had, is Rum Nitty versus KCJ. If you look at some fun things stats-wise here, this Rum Nitty would be one of few battlers that has now battled all of the Bardashians, Official, Jazz, and now this will be KCJ. I believe Twerk has as well. There's probably someone else that I'm not thinking of. Oh, Vixen as well. You know what I'm saying? After this past weekend. So Vixen, Twerk, and now Rum Nitty. Maybe I'm missing one, maybe I'm not. But as far as I know, those are the battlers that have battled all 3. And there's something fun to that. Obviously, Casey has done really good on the Kings versus Queens series. Honestly, if you look at it, whether it's a win or a loss, she beat Swamp, she beat Verb, she lost to DNA, but very good battle with DNA. And now she may have her toughest challenge yet with Rum Nitty. In terms of the match, I mean, it's just name versus name. I don't really see a way that KCJ will be able to compete, especially if we're talking a stage here. I mean, her best bet is, I guess, Nitty not coming prepared or not, but like he's a very consistent battle rapper, and I'm sure he's going to carry the momentum he just had from the Lux battle over his next few plates, and in the attempt of setting up a couple more legend plates before the year's out. It's just an uphill fight. I guess there's name power to it, but I'm not going to sit here and tell you like, oh, I can't wait for the Bar Fest. That's Rum Nitty versus KCJ. And then that leaves you with the two big matchups that they've announced so far. And listen, Geechee versus Hustle and Rock versus Jazz. They're like big name matchups, you know what I mean? But I hate to say it, and in a world where, there was a lot of talk about this last year, and it happens with intergender battles because I think there's just so many limited matchups that are, maybe highly competitive or just can be marketed at this high level. But it screams friendship battles, man. Like, I think Miss Hustle is incredible. She's having a great 2024 so far. I think Geechee Gotti, couple losses in my opinion so far, but he's also got something like the Ilmac battle. Like, they're both great and doing great things. Nothing to do with recent form that I don't like. It's nothing to do with their talent, but I just don't. Miss Hustle versus Geechee Gotti as a matchup just simply doesn't mean that much to me. It's literally the first lady of EFB versus the face of EFB, one of the two faces of EFB. I suppose that they could have, a competitive bar fest here. Listen, they're pros. They're more than that. They're legends. So it's not impossible, but I look at a matchup like that, and I just can't tell you that I'm excited for the conversation whatsoever or that there was any build-up to this anything. I gotta be honest, I don't care for Geechee versus Miss Hustle at all. And then Rock and Jazz, I talked about when I did my Kings versus Queens 5 kind of wish list and the matchups I wanted. I personally asked for Coffee and Rock because I figured if you're going to go to a space where they're just going to go bar for bar, because what else would Jazz and Rock do if not just go bar up with each other? At least with Coffee, you get that match of aggression, like that over-aggression, maybe not to the greatness level that Tay-Rock takes his to, but she can get in his face a little bit. And I mean, they don't have any beef, but it's just the fact that they know how to be extremely competitive, even with an op that they don't have too much of a background with. And I think if we're going to go bar for bar, it's just a better matchup that could probably lead to that more killer type of battle. And you can even say the same thing for Hustle and Geechee. I personally asked for Hustle and Fonz. I mean, look at what Fonz just did on Gnome again, another performance in a big spot. Look, the Shug battle, he knocks it out the park on SM. The Chef Trez battle, granted it's not a big spot, but that stood out as one of the best battles this year on URL. And then the Geechee battle, he stands out with one of the best rounds of the night and one of the more complete and dominant 3-round showings of the night, in my personal opinion. So he just keeps knocking out the park on these cards. I don't know, and him and Hustle actually did go back and forth. Him and Hustle actually have talked a good amount of shit and wanted to battle each other. So these are just battles that would have had more of a competitive edge to me. Like, none of the 4 matchups are the craziest, but those I just think have just another level to it. And listen, Rock and Jazz, similar to what I said about Geechee and Hustle, can very much so be good. We're talking about someone that, in my opinion, is the greatest male battle rapper of all time, and then also someone that is the greatest female battle rapper of all time. So in terms of that part of it, like, I'm not going to tell you the marketing for it doesn't work. It's a humongous battle on paper, but we've seen, we know kind of specifically when we talk friendly battles what Jazz went through last year, battling the men and kind of the narratives on those names. And although the twerk battle was great, I really liked the twerk battle, you know what I'm saying? That's someone that she's clearly close with. Hell, I thought the Nitty battle was pretty good too, but you just see Jazz versus Coffee, right? On Gnome 14. And I just don't know how you don't see that battle. Her first battle versus another high-level competitive woman in a minute. And it just feels like it's so much better and compelling than what we got from her last year. Not that that's bad work whatsoever, you know what I'm saying? There's plenty of good in there, but if you look at the Big K battle, you look at the Rum Nitty battle, you look at the New Jersey Twerk battle, you look at the Charlie Clips battle, you look at the Geechee Gotti battle, her versus Coffee is better than all of that. In some instances, way better than all of that. I haven't particularly, even though I personally have her 2-0, you know what I'm saying, on the Kings versus Queens series so far, I'm not, like, in love with the performances by any means. And listen, she's a greatest female battle rapper of all time, and there's only so many opponents that she's going to have, top-level women that are going to be able to step outside. So it's tough because you don't want to go at a battle or fault someone, because when you say the friendly matchups at the end of the day, even if you don't mean to go at Jazz, Jazz is the one who's going to catch the most brunt from that critique. It's her schedule. It's her level of opponents. It looks like, oh, she's only battling her friends. No, she's battling Tay-Rock. Like, it's a top name, but it just doesn't compel me style-wise. And that's just one man's opinion, but I look at the, so far what they've announced for this card, right? And just those 2 top matchups, while there is the star power, it's going to sell tickets, there's not the buzz for me. And then when you look at the other 2 matchups, I think you're going 1 and 2. I mean, listen, like anyone else, I'll be very happy to watch Rum Nitty rounds, and Casey does good in these spots, so maybe they could just have a good battle, right? Maybe the floor for that battle isn't that low. I don't see it being bad or anything, right? But none of this is just popping off the page to me by any means. And then you add to the fact that this is going to be mixed with a Summer Madness. So I just said none of it's popping off the page to me like that. And this is supposed to be your SM card. And I just think if this is the way that they're going to go about it, this is indeed what the Summer Madness sub is. I mean, I just can't think of a worse mistake to make post-Gnome, to be honest with you, which was such a great event. You start out with a couple battles that don't go great, but the rest of it, highly competitive. Something I see people talking about a lot. Replay value. That so many battles on the card. Besides, obviously, you get your classic main event, but Rock and Jerry, Fonz and Geechee, Swamp and Hustle, Coffee and Jazz. All of these, like, it's booked properly. It felt like the paths were meeting up. Even a battle like Swamp and Hustle, where I didn't think the paths were meeting up, people still showed out and were able to fight there. And I just don't. I don't see how this could be an SM sub. I talked about Gnome Impact in the beginning. You saw how comboing that event worked. Granted, this isn't 2-on-2s. At least it's still 1-on-1 battles. But if you're telling me that there's a world out there where maybe there's a SM card that could have had a Swamp and Cal, you know what I'm saying? A Fonz and John, like I spoke of earlier. Those are two matchups that off rip, just kind of throwing things out there, interests me way more than anything I see in these 4 battles so far. And I'm pretty sure that like by the looks of it, Tay-Rock and Jazz would be the main event, right? And your co-main event's probably Hustle and Geechee with how big of stars they are in URL. So whatever battles could be coming out still, I don't think the main event is waiting anywhere. I think we have kind of the main base of the card. And it's just not SM worthy in my opinion. And it's sad because I don't want to like down on Kings versus Queens at all. If this was just Kings versus Queens 5, you know, matchup wise, like I kind of said, these are things that you have to do, right? Like maybe Rock and Jazz, there's just limited ops, it's big names. They kind of went back and forth, you know, but I don't want the main event of my SM being 2 people that are calling each other bro and sis when given the opportunity. And listen, they are bro and sis, nothing wrong with that. But it just shouldn't be an SM main event if that's how this is all going to go down. So that's just my upfront opinion so far on like, they're just initial thoughts. We haven't gotten the rest of the battle. I don't even think we've gotten a city that it's in yet. There's a bunch of intel that's still to come out for the card. So maybe I'll feel different after a couple more matchups. Maybe they call an audible. Pray to God, you know what I'm saying? Knocking on wood, because I definitely can't, I can't sit here and tell you that I'd be too excited if, to follow up Gnome, this is our SM for the year. And that is my thoughts here. Just these initial kind of thoughts for what Kings versus Queens is looking like in terms of announcements. I know it's more of kind of like a little rant video here than it is like breaking things down, but it's something that stuck out to me, definitely, because I'm looking at URL's next move, because this is the best event in years with Gnome, and I think that easily, if you just put 2 or 3 events together, all of a sudden, you're back where, you know, even though the people that said this and that, the sky is falling, all of a sudden you got 2 or 3 of the better events of the year. So far, I think they have event of the year. And I just, you know, hopes for Kings versus Queens, man. Even though I'm giving my critique, I hope it turns out as good as possible. And that leaves me with wanting to hear what you guys think, man. Tell me if I'm tripping. If this is like a Summer Madness Kings, if this is what we're going to get, do you guys like that? Do you think these matchups can live up to it? I know the star power is there on paper. I don't not respect any of the names on the card, but just the way it's matched up. I'm seeing some people also say the same names coming back, and sometimes I think that that's kind of like an overused complaint. But if you look at this, how many people on this card were on the Gnome card? You know what I'm saying? Like, so, I don't know, man. I want to hear you guys' opinions down below. Matchups, winners if you want. Like I said, we're going to have more of a detailed prediction video coming out closer to the event when the full cards drop. And then, most importantly, how do you feel if this is Kings versus Queens SM combined and this is what we're getting? Also, really quick, of course, I've seen the Murder Mook and Hitman Holla stuff. I'm not going to do a whole video on just men yelling in space. I've already done a video on the battle potentially happening. So if it gets announced, we'll go more in depth with the Hitman and Mook conversation. Any of those mega matches. Might have a mega match video coming up talking about some of those that are still out there. But as always, man, it's been J Smo Reviews here. Like, comment, subscribe, and I'm going to catch you on the next one, man. Peace.